So today I'm here with Patrick Ross, a highly experienced product and innovation leader within the medical technology arena. I had a fascinating chat with you the other day, Patrick, in and around diversity. So I was really excited and keen to talk to you today. So first question, how or sort of, how and why did you build a diverse team?
Yeah, thank you, Justin. So I work in product management at the moment and around medical devices. And there you really have a huge range of perspectives that you have to consider, starting with the patient, the clinicians, the nurses. But then, of course, also within the company, you have engineering, researchers, you have order fulfillment, service, trainers, etc., etc. As well as that, you start on the strategic side and business planning, etc. But you have to accompany these products through the full life cycle down to prioritizing defects later on and managing the whole life cycle. So having multiple perspectives, having different voices, to me is absolutely crucial to be able to meaningfully manage these products. In terms of how, when I started in my previous role, I started with a team of individuals, and these individuals were already diverse. And I think what's important there is to realize that if you don't pigeonhole people, you will find that actually people bring their own backgrounds, their own experiences, different temperaments, different values. And so starting with the team that I had, we spent time being curious about each other. We made the time to understand each other's strengths, each other's aspirations. And then in the second phase, we looked at, how can we benefit from that diversity? And this focus on how can we benefit from the diversity that everybody brings in within our roles, then led to how do we divide things up between us? How do we support each other? How can we learn from each other? And we came back to that time and again. This grows over time. So we tried things out, dividing things in certain ways, working with each other in certain ways. Some things worked, some things worked less. And then over time, by continuously re-engaging with that mindset, that's when we started to really benefit from that diversity. And then as we progressed, we extended it beyond our team. So one of the models that we essentially evolved towards, we didn't pick it up from the standard, but within SAFe, there is a function called Epic Owners, where you bring in engineers or order fulfillment or service directly, for instance, into the intake process where you're trading things off. And so that's a way of bringing in additional voices where the team that you have just isn't diverse enough. And you don't have the headcount to bring in all of those perspectives yourself. We built these bridging functions or working in cross-functional teams like product teams, which a lot of companies have also done. That's worked really well for us. So
interesting. And what sort of challenges did you face? And I suppose, moving forwards into newer projects in the future, Patrick, what sort of learnings do you take into those new projects?
So the first one is that this is not a simple quick win. It's something that relies on you building trust, on people getting to know each other, developing a curiosity, willingness to experiment. And you really can't do it top down. Now that applies to a lot of other change management too. And I would not advocate a real top down approach, but that's something that some people expect, that you are bringing something in and it needs to be driven top down. So it's important that the team understands that this is something that we did for ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there's a preconception that some people have about diversity, and that's that if you bring in these voices, it slows things down.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes them less rigorous, because now suddenly all views are valid, or something like this.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm convinced the opposite is true if you do it right.
Yeah.
So the problem with a lack of due representation at the right time within a process is that you don't get the right inputs, and in the end, what you're doing doesn't work, and it creates churn, as well as a loss of discipline, because also people will start working around your process.
Yes. Yeah.
And one great example, and that's why we introduced these Epic owners, what we found was when we were doing prioritization in our backlog, during our PI increments, where we were defining what's happening in engineering in the next planning phase, people would try and circumvent product management by bringing in their own topics via relations and other routes.
Yeah.
But by actually bringing them into the conversation and showing them that there is a due process, that their views are taken seriously, that what they're doing is properly understood, suddenly all of that churn died down, and we arrived at something where we had a far higher business rigor.
Yeah.
And that's how, rather than being slower or arriving at something that has less discipline, you actually get lower delays and far fewer risks. And then maybe in terms of learnings, for me, I realized that the way that some people, and that includes me, think about diversity as bringing in people or developing individuals with different backgrounds to a particular role, I've rethought that a little bit. To me, it's not about bringing in individuals or developing to fit the mold of a role, but it's much more about fostering the dynamic where those roles actually benefit from the value that diversity brings. So it's about creating the right roles and the right dynamics, rather than just sort of a hiring exercise or something where you can look at the statistics. And then in terms of benefits, so why put the effort in?
Yeah, what kind of outcomes did you see from, or would you highlight as very positive for a diverse team?
Yeah, I mean, I covered already why it's essential to have it.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that. I think for me, I have loved learning with and from others.
Yeah.
And it's kept me honest. And that's what I want. I want to work in that kind of environment. Yeah. And if we look at whatever it is, COVID or the supply management crisis that we had, or if you have a team that has really started to appreciate each other, you build a level of trust and mutual support and a willingness to experiment, where that sees you through these crises so much better.
Yeah.
So it's just the support and trust and learning that you get from that approach that you otherwise would really sorely miss.
Good stuff.